I sat down with the chief executive, that is Tiaan Bazuin, and he told us about investor sentiment there.
Firstly, the demand side is still massive. We did a total of 8.5 billion in trading for last year. We're already at 11.5 for this year. So there's been a substantial amount of trading. Obviously, a lot of that is in dual listeds, but our local stocks have performed very strongly. Our index is up 20%. So considering the volatility that we've seen generally in the markets, our local stocks are performing very well, and things are busy at the exchange.
From a supply side, you said there's just not enough companies.
I still need more local companies to come to market.
So let's talk about the targets. Where are we in terms of listings?
Well, we've actually got one that's in process. There's probably another one on the way. They are few and far between in the Namibian market, but obviously we drive towards that. We're busy implementing a CSD together with our central bank, as well as all the market participants, quite frankly, and that should also be an incentive for companies to come not only to list, but to get the functionality of a CSD and having an electronic register.
So you're here in South Africa. Obviously there are conversations that are taking place between yourself, other market participants, chief executive of other stock exchanges. What's on the agenda?
Regional integration is a big conversation, as well as infrastructure sharing is becoming more and more of a conversation. We've found in the region a lot of exchanges historically went and bought their own systems. Those systems are coming to end of life, so they have to upgrade again and pay again. And quite frankly, they're not cash positive, so they have to be funded by government. Historically, the NSX has had this partnership with the JSE where we use their trading system. That's worked out very well for us, so we can come off a very low cost base. So I'm explaining how we do this and why we did it to a lot of exchanges at this stage, because they're looking at alternatives. And I do believe that be it an exchange or a vendor is eventually going to set up a central hub where everybody can use the same infrastructure, which will cut down the costs a lot and hopefully can bring down the cost of trading in the end.
The Namibian Stock Exchange and the JSE have a very close relationship there. How are you doing in terms of the relationships between the Namibian Stock Exchange with other exchanges on the African continent or within SADC?
Look, we're all part of regional bodies. We see each other, we exchange ideas, and we try to get closer together. And like the harmonization of the rules was driven by one of those bodies through the Committee of SADC Stock Exchanges, where all of those have now harmonized listing requirements. Now that's a great thing, because then people have a sense of what the entire market is like, instead of having to due diligence each market individually. So we're getting closer.
Yeah. Regionalization, I know that is something that you said that you were working towards. Having a regional stock exchange, is that something that is within sight?
I don't think we'll get to a point where there's a single regional stock exchange, because every exchange has a role to play in terms of regulating and supervising the companies that are in that jurisdiction. Remember, our legislation isn't the same either, so it's very difficult for a single exchange to service that. However, getting to a point where it's easier for everybody to trade cross-border, that I believe we can achieve.
In terms of liquidity, people think about African stock exchanges. They get a bit nervous because of the liquidity challenges. This is something that is still very real. Yes, you spoke about harmonization. As the Namibian Stock Exchange, how do you compete with giants like the JSE?
We don't have to compete with the JSE. That's not our intention. I don't think anybody's trying to do that. Because of the size difference, you'll never be able to compete with them in that sense. What you do want to do is you want to be the primary economic point of your own market, and then you need to find niches that are not being serviced in your region. I can take the bond market, for example. The JSE's bond model is a partially lit model. So when we formalize our bond market, we'll probably differentiate it from that, so that the guys that aren't getting what they require in this market have an alternative. This is similar to alternative trading platforms that you would have seen in Europe that find the niches where a customer is not being serviced adequately currently. Alternatively, I mean, the alternative trading platforms simply undercut and only do the trading, and that's not what the exchanges do, because we have a cost component in regulation of our market.
Tiaan, I want to go back to what you said around you need those listings. So this time next year, given everything that you've just said, you are making progress. I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you, how many companies are you hoping to see, and which particular sectors?
I'd like to see the non-banking financial sector in Namibia also open up to Namibian shareholding, because what we're seeing is the biggest part of that market is controlled by South African companies that are wholly owned South African. So I'd love to see Sanlam Namibia, Old Mutual Namibia come and list on the Namibian Stock Exchange and open up for that shareholding. There is potential, and there's a lot of talk of potential BEE requirements in Namibia, and I hope the exchange can actually be the solution for that as well.
That was Tiaan Bazuin, Chief Executive of the Namibian Stock Exchange.